Hi, everybody. Out in YouTube land. It's been a long fucking day. Oh, I'm tired. I could just pass right out. Oh my god, I'm tired. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about buoyancy and density. Um, Again, I don't know why people are trying to say that buoyancy and density isn't real. It's buoyancy and density is grade 9 science, okay? Let me ask you something. You drop an egg in ice cold water in a pot, fresh ice cold water. You drop the egg in the pot, and the egg sinks to the bottom. And, people will say, oh, that's gravity. That's gravity. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But what happens when you add salt to that water? That egg rises. Okay? That's because you're changing the medium that the egg sits in. And that thus proving buoyancy. If the medium is changed and the water is now more dense than the egg simply rises to the top. There's no requirement for gravity. I don't know why you think you need to invoke the word gravity. Another pseudoscientific word by pseudoscientific priests in their pseudoscientific world. And then you take the word, helium, or you take the word hydrogen. It will naturally seek equilibrium, not by going down, but by going up, or whatever way you want to look at it. There's no gravity required for helium to rise. Helium simply rises up above the air because the air is less dense than the helium. Okay, so I've just proven buoyancy and density. Go buy a helium balloon. Let it go. It'll float straight up in the air. What are you going to tell yourself? Are you going to tell yourself that gravity is just pushing everything else down, but it's not pushing down the helium? You're going to tell yourself that when you drop an egg in water and you put the salt in the water and now the egg rises up, that gravity just doesn't want to push down on the egg anymore? Are you going to tell yourself that gravity keeps down massive amounts of water, tons and tons of millions of tons of water, and a butterfly just flies by? Are you going to tell yourself that gravity is selective and only certain things are forced down while other things rise up? I've given you a demonstration of how buoyancy and density works. Like, you take the egg, you drop it in the water, you add the salt, the egg rises. The helium rises above the air because the helium is less dense than the air. The egg rises above the water because the egg is now less dense than water because you've changed the medium of the water. You take a nickel, you take a quarter, you take a penny, and you drop it from your hand to the ground. The quarter, the nickel, the penny, whatever it is going to fall to the ground solely because it's heavier than the medium it's in, i.e. the air. If all of a sudden the air was changed into a denser state than the nickel, the penny, the quarter, the whatever, it wouldn't fall, or it would fall slower. If you dropped a quarter into a jello mold that had finished being a jello mold, the quarter would just go flat and sit on the top of the jello mold, wouldn't it? But if that jello mold was just as you made it, just after you finished making it, before it turned to jello, and you dropped that quarter on top of that jello mold, it would fall to the bottom. The reason it's falling to the bottom is because it hasn't become a viscous, heavier, denser jello until it's finished doing what it has to do to turn to jello. It's a liquid state, so it falls. Again, changing the medium. I don't understand why people aren't getting it. I don't understand why they have this construct in their mind of what they think they believe gravity is, and not capable of doing any demonstrations to provide any evidence. And then when somebody says, well, I take a bowling ball and a feather and I drop it and they drop at the same time it's in a vacuum. I'm just going to say this to you. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Number one, you don't live in a vacuum. And number two, can you have a vacuum chamber without a container? Can you have a vacuum without a container? As far as I know, you can't have a vacuum without a container. As far as I know, you can't have a pressurized gas without a container. So you can't have air that we breathe every day or breathing without a container. And you most certainly couldn't create a vacuum without a container. Like, that's real science. Buoyancy and density is real science. Boyle's law, the gas would fill the space. That's real science. Those are natural laws. They're not made up. They're not some fucking guy on YouTube. Oh, yeah, we're just going to make it all up. Why don't you go look it up yourself instead of like opening that pie hole in your mouth and telling everybody you know what you're talking about when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. It makes people mad. It makes me mad. I don't need that fucking rhetoric taught to my children. I don't need my kids going to school being taught that the earth has multiple layers and has a nickel iron core on a presupposed sphere and all this shit. Go look up the Kola super deep in Russia. Look up the Kola super deep in Russia. They dug 12.3 kilometers. That's the farthest that they've ever dug in 1970. So if they've dug, the farthest they've ever dug is 12.36 kilometers. You're going to tell me that that's going to give them enough evidence to know what the layers of the earth are, and they're going to put those in textbooks and teach them as science to people? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you believe that? I believe it. It was shown to me in a textbook. The same textbook that is just made up. There is a glaring contradiction, you dicks, you fundamentalists, when you research the facts of how far they've ever dug. Russia, Kola super deep, 1970. Look it up, Buttercup. And enough of your fucking nonsense. Your lies are coming back to bite you in the ass. You think, it's just whatever. It's going to go away and we'll just keep lying and lying. Fuck you. Your shit's fucking going to end, man. The lies have to stop. And they're going to stop. And your shit is going to fucking end. Done with your nonsense. Fucking idiots.